Hi, good evening. I'm trying to get this microphone out. I can't do it. I'd like to welcome everyone to the Cranston Herald Ward 2 debate and our candidates, who I'm glad to say I personally and professionally know each and every one of you. My name is Mary Kennedy. I'm a Ward 2 resident. Some of you I do know very well. And I'm also a staff reporter for the Cranston Herald. And at this time, I'd like to introduce my editor, Elizabeth Whalen-Seal, the Cranston Herald. Elizabeth?
Thank you all for coming tonight. This is the first debate the Cranston Herald has sponsored, and my understanding is that this is the first ward-only debate that has been done in a very long time. We hope that this will be the beginning of a tradition rather than a one-time only thing. We at the Cranston Herald believe very strongly in educating voters, and a well-educated voter is in fact the best kind of voter you can have. So we've had all three candidates come up here, even though only two of them will be on the ballot at the primary election on the 12th. We hope that you listen to all of them and keep in mind what you've heard here so that you can vote both in the primary and again in the general election in November. Our candidates tonight are, starting from the left, Mark Lucas, who is running as a Republican for City Council, Ward 2. In the middle is Emilio Navarro, who is running as a Democrat. He has a primary in September. And on the end is Joe Castellone, who is also running as a Democrat. He has a primary. And both Emilio and Joe will be on the September ballot. So if you want to vote for one of them, better do it in September. Our format tonight is going to be a little different than what's typically done. We wanted to include as much as possible input from the candidates as well as from the community. All of our candidates will have two questions that they're asked directly. We drove a lot at the beginning of the evening, and so after they have taken their time to answer the questions initially, each one is going to have 3 minutes for an initial response. After that, each of the other two candidates will have 2 minutes to rebut. We wanted the candidates to actually debate rather than just simply make statements, and the initial candidate will also have 30 seconds after the other two are done to rebut their rebuttal, as it were. For the second half of the evening, we hope that you have brought questions you want to ask because you're going to have a chance to do it. We will be putting the microphone up here. We ask that anyone who has a candidate for a question for any of the candidates or all of the candidates to come up and just state the question. Don't worry, you don't have to put your names and addresses on the record. We won't come looking for you. And you can name a specific candidate you'd like to have answer or ask them all to answer it. Well, not at once, but all of them to answer. And we just ask that you keep your questions brief and be polite even if you're asking someone that you don't support. So, with no further ado, all three of our candidates have been asked to prepare a 2-minute opening statement, and we will be starting with Mark Lucas. Mark, please.
Thank you, Elizabeth, and thank you all for coming. I'd like to thank the Cranston Herald for putting this on as well. My name is Mark Lucas, and I live on River Farm Road in the Forest Hills section of Cranston with my wife Meg and 2 children, Ryan and Caitlin. I was born and raised in Pawtucket, Rhode Island, and I'm the youngest of 4 children of a stay-at-home mom and a union laborer. As early as I can remember, I wanted to be an astronaut. At the University of Rhode Island, I studied physics and history, and in 1989 I was selected over 5,000 other applicants to attend the U.S. Navy's Aviation Officer Candidate School in Pensacola, Florida. You've all seen the movie An Officer and a Gentleman. Well, I can tell you that it's much more difficult in real life, but it was really a blast. Unfortunately, I was diagnosed with an inner ear defect and received an honorable discharge from the Navy. Seeking a new challenge, I became a sales consultant in the technology sector, working for companies like Apple Computer and Dell. In 1998, my wife and I bought the family home from her father and moved to Cranston. I began attending city council meetings in 2001, and in 2002, I briefly thought about running for the Ward 2 city council seat. However, the birth of my second child put that idea on the back burner. It's funny how 2 children under 3 can really eat up your free time. In 2004, I decided to seek the Ward 2 city council seat. I knocked on 4,000 doors, but it wasn't enough to beat a strong incumbent. Instead of crawling under a rock, I became more involved. Over the past few years, I've led the fight against business expansion into residential neighborhoods, organized the parents and fought the closure of Horton Elementary School, spoke out for better traffic controls, encouraged the formation of neighborhood groups, joined the fight against concrete batching plant, held an annual block party for my neighbors, and launched 3 websites to try to bring the community together and foster better communication. I've built relationships with those in the highest levels of city government and I've learned how to have everyone work toward the same goal and get things done. I've had countless potholes fixed, signs replaced, and trees removed, and I continue to keep an eye out for things that need attention. Cranston has come a long way in the last several years, but more needs to be done. With your vote in November, I'll use my business, technological, and people skills, as well as my real-world experiences to keep Cranston moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mark. Emilio?
Testing. Fellow residents of Ward 2 and guests, my name is Emilio Navarro, and it's an honor and a privilege to have the opportunity tonight to discuss with you the issues facing our ward and in our city, and my plan for a better quality of life for Cranston families, for you, your children, and your parents. On September 12th, you will be faced with a very important decision. The Democratic primary will determine which candidate will go on to the general election. In my opinion, I am the only choice for that seat. I bring to the table sound, proven leadership, family values, creative problem-solving skills, the willingness to reach across party lines to get things done, experience dealing with local officials, and a lifelong commitment to the Democratic Party and its ideals. I want to open the lines of communication between city officials and municipal unions. Together, we can break the tension that currently exists and develop a strong working relationship built on trust to get things done. I want to establish the Cranston Future Fund, a private, nonprofit organization. The sole focus of the fund will be to the children of Cranston. The money raised will go to schools, libraries, parks and recreational facilities used by our children. It will be led by volunteers who will be ambassadors of the city of Cranston to reestablish civic pride in our community. I want to put an end to the closing of our children's schools, and let's make sure that our teachers in our schools get the best possible tools to provide the best possible education for our children. Looking into this crowd tonight, I see Democrats, I see Republicans, I see independent voters. Regardless of your party affiliation, you are a member of a larger group, the Cranston family. And if you want what's best for your family, you will give me your vote in the Democratic primary on September 12th, and then again in the general election in November. Thank you.
Thank you, Emilio. Joe?
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you, Cranston Herald, for allowing the opportunity to meet with the rest of the constituents that are here this evening. My name is Joseph Castellone. I live at 27 Moraine Street in Cranston, Rhode Island, with my wife, my 3 children. I'm a taxpayer in the city. I also have a small business in the city. I'm also a real estate investor. I currently sit on the Patuxent River Authority. We take care of the majority of the cleanups in Ward 2. We're a non-profit organization. We're also a 501c3 program. We also recognize Rhode Island general laws. We do not take a salary. I've been active in this community for the past 2.5 years, since my first defeat to unseat the incumbent Elizabeth Roberts from her seat as Senate District 28 representative. I'd like to bring my best business practices to the city of Cranston and restore some honest government on the small level rather than the larger level. And we all need to keep in mind that politics are small and the local issues are also small and they're not being addressed. I need your vote on September 12th in the primary to make sure that honest government stays where it should be rather than leave. From time to time, elected officials come into the city and they destroy our city and they leave a wake of financial ruin. I want to make sure that those elected officials do not come back into the city and rain terror on our city again. We cannot afford tax increases under any circumstance, whether it be a donation, whether it be another surplus rate, or whether it be a rainy day fund rate. We cannot afford this ever again. We also cannot afford to go back to the days when we had a horrible bond rating and we couldn't make payroll. These are issues that are very important to the city of Cranston, but especially in my heart in Ward 2. I'd also like to make sure that Wolf Street becomes economically development again, and creative, and more money and commerce come into Ward 2. I thank you so much for your time, and I look for your vote September 12th.
Thank you, Joe. As luck would have it, you get the first question. You have 3 minutes to respond, and then each of your opponents will have 2 minutes to respond to your response. What would you do about the current situation with the cement plant, and what are your plans for its future as you take a leadership role in the ward?
One second, please. Upon my research in the past month and a half, this batching plant has become a serious issue in Ward 2. Not only is it an environment issue, I believe it's also a safety issue, and I consider them both linked. The batching plant, in my opinion, the permit was obtained illegally. We all need to keep in mind the way that this permit was obtained was before the gentleman applied to the city for a batching plant. So originally he applied for a permit that was not issued for a batching plant, it was issued for another reason. The wetlands permit was issued prior to the batching plant, and this was not, and I say again, this was not issued with the batching plant in mind. There are several other permits which he has to apply for. The city has to hire an attorney to get rid of this batching plant. This is not the appropriate site for this type of industrial business. City council has no knowledge of this plant permit. This permit was issued through the city, and no one knew about it. There are lots of poisons that are in the concrete batching plant. I could spend probably about 20 minutes and go on about all the different poisons that are made. Basically, the one that we all know is called arsenic, okay? Now, we all like to have concrete driveways and concrete steps, but the way that these things are made are not something we need to have in Ward 2. This plant was also going to consume a lot of water at that time, and the city of Cranston cannot afford to have that surplus of water on those hot days. For example, from time to time, the city has come through and said that we have to limit our supply watering our grass. From time to time, we've all had lawns that have turned brown and died because of that. This is going to be an issue that's going to drain money, that's going to drain water from the reservoir. However, the gentleman that's having the problem right now is saying that it's not going to take money from the reservoir, he's going to take it from the Patuxent River. The Patuxent River, once he takes the water from that place and he reconditions the water, which he has to do by state law, is also going to cause a problem for the fish. It's also going to cause a problem for some of the wildlife that's set back there. Some of the residents I've contacted on Holland Avenue have spoken to me about the specific ideas and what they'd like to do. But I'll have you know this, as your Ward 2 councilman, I will not vote in favor if it decides to come back on the city docket and have something there in the back of Ward 2. This is not something I'd be in favor of. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Joe. Mark, you get the first chance at response. You can pass it down.
Thank you.
This is probably better.
Much better.
Well, I certainly don't support the concrete batching plant in Eden Park, and in fact, I was at the 4.5-hour city council meeting last night and supported my neighbors, and I wanted to see the whole investigation unfold with my own eyes. I can tell you that I support the city council in the process that it's in right now. They're making a very thorough and prudent investigation into how the building permit was issued, and if there were any problems that went along with that. Certainly, you know, I've been at every one of the meetings for the concrete batching plant except the one that they had here, and I have to tell you there are two things that are very, very certain. Mistakes were made by both the city and the applicant, and regardless of who did what, the building permitting process, as well as the zoning rules and regulations, need to be reviewed and revised immediately. Certainly, as a member of the City Council, I would continue to support the process that's already in effect. I'm relatively certain that this process will end up in court because the applicant has spent a significant amount of money pursuing this concrete batching plant. So I'm with the City Council in this. I urge them to continue to be prudent as they continue along the process with this investigation. And ultimately, I think that the taxpayers will come out on top because, let's be frank, anytime something goes into an industrial area, the industrial owner really needs to take extra care to not impact the neighborhood. I mean, certainly when it abuts a residential neighborhood, extra care should be taken. And we're so small and compact here in Ward 2 that anything like this has a significant impact in the neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Emilio, your response?
I was notified through one of the parents, one of the neighbors in that area, and told me that there was a batching plant going into there, right in the backyard, stone's throw away. And I decided to get involved and find out there's no way that we can have a batching plant that's going to be hazard, it's going to have environmental issues, traffic impact, health issues. So I made a couple of calls, and I found out that there was a permit issued for that batching plant. And I couldn't believe that no one in that neighborhood was ever notified about something so serious that was going to be built right in their backyard. And when I found out that there was also a situation in March of the same exact issue, that the western side of Cranston, the folks there decided there was no permit issue, decided to get up and fight not to have this batching plant there. There was an actual ordinance that was put into place, and this batching plant permit got approved 4 days before this ordinance went into effect. When I heard that, I realized that there's flaws in the system. There's flaws in the way our city government there runs the permitting process there. And part of what I want to do is if I get elected, get on the master planning review, because there are certain areas of government that are very archaic that need to be looked at and need to be improved upon, so things like this don't happen ever again.
Thank you, Emilio. Joe, if you choose, you can have 30 seconds to rebut any of your opponent's thoughts. Your choice.
As far as rebuttal goes, I'll have to say, and I'll say this with all integrity naturally, I've been involved with the Pawtuxet Authority for the past 2 years. That was a position that was appointed to the current administration. There is no salary that is drawn. My issue I have with my opponents is not a large issue, is they want to be involved in the environment, which is fine, but we've had 4 cleanups in the city of Cranston, and I haven't seen either one of them.
Thank you, Joe. The second question goes to Emilio. Emilio, how would you spark movement on the Park Cinema project, and how would you ensure that the project goes forward as planned? If work stalls, at what point would you hold the city's current hold on the cinema developer's liquor license?
If elected to City Council Ward 2, the first thing that I would do is propose to have that liquor license revoked. At this point in time, it's been 40 months, and the only thing that's actually happened there is weeds growing. I go by there every day, and I can't believe that we have a park cinema development going on there in front of our government center in the heart of Ward 2, and nothing has been done. There's been nothing but excuses, delays, postponements, and part of what the city has done. I think the initial idea to have a theater, a diner was a good idea, but not to have it last 4 months. The city has actually bent over backwards, given them economic development loans. They've approved them. They've let them use that you can use our city hall parking lot to park your trucks to do the construction. They've extended the liquor license time and time and time again. I went back and looked at 2 years ago in the paper, the exact same issues were going on. Now it's 2 months that they're extending the license. What needs to be done is that liquor license needs to be pulled, and we need to just give Patel any more time because nothing is being done. This is a failed project. The only thing that we can do at this point now is learn from this. We need to hold the administration and city council. We need accounting. We need accounting of what's happened. How much does this cost the city? What's going on with this project now, and what do they plan on doing this? What do they plan on doing with this? Because at this point, we need to learn from a debacle. We need to learn from a failed project, and I just hope that we can just tell Patel to just give it up.
Thank you, Emilio. Joe, do you have a rebuttal? You have 2 minutes.
Absolutely, thank you, Elizabeth. Funding has been an issue for this gentleman for some time. In having a business in the city, a privately owned business, is very difficult. From time to time, you do things that you didn't realize were going to happen. I realize that his funding is now in place. He's going before the Historic District Commission. They gave him his approval. The Site Plan Review Board has also approved them, and all his permits are in place, except for his building permit. He still has to go before the licensing committee in 1 week. The city is currently pushing this project to move forward. Now, when I speak to some of my constituents in Ward 2, I do hear that they're concerned with the park cinema in general, and it hasn't been so much the liquor license. My concern is, by revoking this gentleman's liquor license, he already has 1 foot that's cut off. We cut off his other foot, what are we going to do? Okay? The idea is not to continue to strangle this gentleman, but to work with him. Being in business, I realize that from time to time, and I hate to sound redundant, you wind up getting involved in projects you didn't foresee. This project in this city, this has been a long time going on, and I do agree with my opponent on that. However, I don't agree by cutting off his other foot. He's going through a hardship. We need to work with him. I do not think that revoking his liquor license is going to help take care of this problem. In fact, this is going to suppress this gentleman, and in fact, that'll wind up having that effect on the rest of the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Mark, your thoughts?
The city's been very patient with the owner of the Park Cinema, and it's done what it can to move this project along, but financing issues caused a significant delay. Like many of you, my patience was wearing thin, and I voiced my concerns in a letter to the editor just a few months ago. Today I spoke with the architect, John Riley of East Providence, and after his site visit with Dave Maher of the city, and I received an update on the project. I now have a renewed sense of optimism that this project will be completed on time, and the Park Cinema will once again be the cornerstone of this neighborhood. I understand that they've gone through a very, very long process. The Cranston Historical Commission made many modifications to their plan, and it's recently cleared site plan review by the City Plan Commission. Permits, building permits are ready to be issued as soon as the Park Cinema folks can get their plans together. A couple of things that I learned today. There's a job captain that now lives on site and will be managing the work going forward. The modifications to the foundation will be complete by tomorrow. The shop drawings are due September 22nd. Those are the drawings for all the steel structure. It's going to take 6 to 8 weeks to fabricate the structural steel, and then 3 more weeks to erect it. In early November, we're going to see an open steel structure in place. 2 floors, part of the cafe, a kitchen, and the spire. Set back and above from the original looking facade. Work is going to continue over the winter months, and the structure will be enclosed by early spring with completion scheduled for late spring or early summer. I believe that Mr. Patel, although he's had a long, hard road, has partially redeemed himself. I'm willing to be patient a few more months and hold that ultimate chit of that liquor license for a few more months, be patient, and I expect to see an open steel structure by November. And if it doesn't, then serious decisions must be made. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Emilio, 30 seconds to rebuttal.
Excuses, excuses, excuses. As far as hardship for Mr. Patel, I was told that he's the 3rd richest man in Indiana. And as far as what I'd like to know is how much has this cost the taxpayers, this project not being completed? It's taken 40 months. I believe that there's a CVS, Walgreens is going to be built before that. We have a police headquarters that will probably be built before that. So, I mean, this is not a big project, and I think it's cost the taxpayers a lot to this point.